The year was 2137. Humanity had just started to live on Mars and built some stations in the asteroid belt. Earth was still the main home for most people, but humans were slowly moving out into space. On a normal Tuesday morning, strange signals came from beyond Pluto. The big radio dishes on Earth's moon picked up these signals first. They were not random. They had patterns that only smart beings could make. Captain Susan Wright sat in her office on the Earth Defense Force ship, Intrepid, when the call came. She was drinking coffee and looking at reports when her screen lit up with an urgent message. "Captain, you need to see this," said the face on the screen. It was Communications Officer Joe Nelson. His eyes were wide and his voice shook a little. "What is it, Nelson?" Susan asked, putting down her coffee. "We got a message from command. There's something big coming toward Earth, and it's not from around here." Susan felt her heart beat faster, but her face stayed calm. This was what the Intrepid was built for. The ship was Earth's newest and best defense vessel made to protect human space from any threat. "Get the crew ready." "I'll be on the bridge in 5 minutes," she said. When Susan walked onto the bridge, everyone turned to look at her. Lieutenant Alan Garcia, her second in command, stood up straight. "What do we know?" Susan asked, sitting in the captain's chair. "Science." Officer Patricia Baker walked to the main screen. She was the smartest person on the ship, with 3 degrees in alien biology, even though no aliens had been found yet. Until now. "The object slowed down near Neptune," Patricia said. "It's big, about 3 times the size of our ship, and it's giving off energy readings we've never seen before." "Weapon systems?" Susan asked. "Unknown," said Alan. "But if they wanted to attack, they could have done it without showing themselves." The next hours were busy. The Intrepid moved to meet the alien ship. Earth governments tried to decide what to do. People on Earth and Mars were told about the aliens, and many were scared. The alien ship was strange looking. It had a center part shaped like a ball, with 7 long arms coming out from it, each ending in smaller balls. It was dark blue and seemed to bend light around it in weird ways. "They're sending a message," Joe said. "It's in English? Put it on screen," Susan ordered. The screen showed a being that looked somewhat like a tall, thin human but with gray-blue skin. It had 4 arms and a head with 3 black eyes in a triangle pattern. When it spoke, its mouth moved in strange ways. "People of Earth, I am Admiral Kazatak of the Galactic Confederation. We have been watching your world for some time. We come in peace and wish to meet with your leaders." The bridge was quiet. First contact with aliens was happening, and it was happening to them. "Send this reply," Susan said after talking to Earth Command. "This is Captain Susan Wright of the Earth Defense Force vessel Intrepid. We welcome you to our solar system and accept your peaceful greeting. Earth's governments are preparing a formal welcome, but I am allowed to meet with you first." The alien message came back quickly. "Excellent. We would be pleased to have you and your key crew visit our ship for a diplomatic meal. This is our way of starting new relationships." After the message ended, Alan looked worried. "Captain, is that safe? Going onto their ship?" "Probably not," Susan said. "But orders are orders. Earth wants to show we're not afraid. We'll scan for weapons and keep emergency transport ready." Patricia looked excited. "Do you realize what this means? Aliens eat food. They have mouths and digestive systems maybe somewhat like ours. Or they might eat energy fields and the meal is just a translation error," Joe said. "Either way," Susan said, "we need to be ready. The Confederation sounds organized. That means many species may be an empire. We need to show strength without being threatening." The next day, Susan got more information from Earth Command. The Zoraxians, the species they had seen, were the military leaders of the Confederation. Intelligence thought they might want humans to join them, maybe as fighters. "Why us?" Alan asked when Susan told her bridge crew. "We've barely left our own solar system. Earth has high gravity compared to many worlds," Patricia said. "And we evolved as both prey and predators. Many alien species might have evolved only as one or the other. Our mix of fear and aggression could make us interesting to them." So they want us as soldiers, Joe said. Great, Susan thought for a moment. Before we go to their dinner, we should invite them to one of ours. Show them human customs. Learn more about them while they learn about us. Is that wise? Alan asked. We don't know what they eat. That's why you and Patricia will plan the perfect meal, Susan said. Something that shows Earth culture but won't poison our guests. Susan sent the message to the alien ship. Admiral Kazatak in human custom. It would be an honor to host you for a meal on our vessel first. This would let us show you our ways before we learn yours. Would you join us tomorrow? The reply came 1 hour later. Captain Wright, this is unusual but acceptable. I will send my second commander, Vexilor, to observe your customs. I look forward to our meeting after. That night, Susan couldn't sleep. Humanity had dreamed of meeting aliens for centuries. Now it was happening, and somehow she was the one in charge of making sure it went well. If she failed, Earth might face dangers it wasn't ready for. The next morning, the crew prepared the mess hall. The cooks made foods from many Earth cultures. The room was cleaned and decorated with symbols of Earth, pictures of oceans, mountains, cities, and people from around the world. The alien shuttle is approaching, Joe's voice said over the ship's speakers. Susan straightened her uniform and took a deep breath. Bring them aboard, she said. Let's show them what humans are all about. The doors opened and Commander Vexilor walked in with 2 guard aliens. They were tall and moved like careful hunters. Their forearms were held ready, as if they might need to fight at any moment. Welcome aboard the Intrepid, Susan said with a smile. We're glad you could join us for this meal. For humans, sharing food is how we build trust and friendship. Vexilor's 3 eyes blinked in sequence. This is not our way, but we will observe. Admiral Kazatak is interested in human customs. What the aliens didn't know was that this meal was more than just food. It was the start of humanity's biggest test, and Susan Wright was ready to make sure humans passed it. Commander Vexilor watched with all 3 of his eyes as the humans began their strange ritual. The food was laid out on a long table in the middle of the room. There were many different items, some still steaming hot. Please sit, Captain Susan, Wright said, pointing to a special chair they had built to fit Vexilor's tall form. The alien commander sat down slowly, his 4 arms resting on the table. His 2 guards stood behind him, not sitting. In human custom, we all eat together, Susan explained. We share food as a way to build trust before important talks. Vexilor blinked his eyes in order from top to bottom. This is very different from our ways. Zoraxians fast before important meetings. A clear mind needs an empty stomach. Patricia Baker, who sat across from Vexilor, found this very interesting. She took notes on her small computer while trying not to be too obvious about it. We've prepared foods that should be safe for your biology based on the data you sent us, Patricia said. But please only try what you feel comfortable with. The human crew began filling their plates. Alan Garcia took some of everything. Joe Nelson stuck to simpler foods like bread and fruits. Susan took a balanced mix, showing what she thought was proper human eating habits. You eat very different amounts, Vexilor noticed. Humans are all different, Susan said. We have different tastes and needs. It's one of our strengths. Vexilor carefully picked up a small piece of bread. He sniffed it with a breathing hole on the side of his face. Then he put it in his mouth and chewed slowly. The texture is unusual but not unpleasant, he said. As the meal went on, the humans talked and laughed. They told stories about Earth and asked polite questions about the Confederation. Vexilor answered some questions but mostly watched and listened. Why do you laugh so much during an important preparation time? Vexilor asked after Joe told a joke that made everyone chuckle. Laughter helps us relax, Susan explained. When humans are relaxed, we think better and work better together. Vexilor looked confused. Before battle or important meetings, Zoraxians focus and prepare. We do not relax. Susan smiled. We're not getting ready for battle, Commander. We're getting ready for a friendly meeting. But Vexilor wasn't fooled. He could tell these humans were smart. The questions they asked told him they were gathering information. The way they watched his reactions to different foods showed they were studying him. This meal was not just about friendship. In Zoraxian history, Vexlor said. We learned that eating makes the mind slow and the body weak. Our greatest warriors always fought on empty stomachs. Patricia nodded as if this made perfect sense. Different species evolved different ways. Humans evolved as pursuit predators on a high-gravity world. We needed to eat large meals to have energy for long hunts. What Patricia didn't say was that she was carefully watching how much food Vexler ate and how it affected him. She noticed that after eating just a small amount, the alien's movements became slightly slower. His third eyelid blinked more often, which might be a sign of tiredness. Meanwhile, Susan kept the conversation going, learning about the Confederation. There were 12 main species, with Zoraxians as the military leaders. They controlled hundreds of star systems. Earth was interesting to them because they had never found another world with such diverse life. You have plants and animals that both feed and kill each other, Vexilor said. Most worlds have simpler life systems. And humans? Alan asked. What makes us interesting? Vexler paused, considering his answer. You are balanced in unusual ways. You have fear, but also courage. You are not the strongest species we have found, but you adapt quickly. And you reach space without destroying yourselves, which is rare. While they talked, Joe was secretly scanning Vexlor with hidden sensors in the room. The data went to Patricia's computer. She studied the alien's body systems while pretending to just enjoy her meal. What Patricia said about human evolution is true, Susan said. But there's more to our feasting tradition. Throughout human history, warriors would feast before battle. This clearly shocked Vexler. But why? It makes no sense. Because we never knew when we might eat again, Susan said. And food brings us together. A meal shared is a bond formed. The meal lasted 2 hours. By the end, Vexler had tried small amounts of several foods. The humans had eaten much more and kept the conversation friendly but informative. When the meal ended, Vexler stood up. He seemed slightly off balance for a moment. Thank you for showing me your customs, he said. Admiral Kazatak will be interested in my report. We look forward to hosting you on our ship tomorrow. After Vexilor and his guards left, the human crew gathered in the briefing room. What did you find out? Susan asked Patricia. Patricia showed them data on her screen. Their metabolism is fascinating, super efficient but slow. They get more energy from less food compared to humans, but their bodies process it slowly. And look at this. She pointed to a chart of Vexilor's vital signs. After eating, his system slowed down. Reaction time decreased by about 12%. So they really do get sluggish after eating, Alan said. That's why they fast before important events. Exactly, Patricia said. And I bet they expect everyone else to do the same. They're probably confused why we would eat before meeting them. Joe brought up his findings next. Their technology is way beyond ours. Their ship could probably destroy us in seconds. But I also detected some weak points in their armor. If it ever came to a fight, we'd need to be smart about it. Susan nodded. I don't think they want to fight. At least not yet. Admiral Kazatak could have attacked Earth already if that was the plan. They want something else. They want us, Alan said. Vexler kept talking about human adaptability. I think they want humans to join them, maybe as soldiers or explorers. Well, tomorrow we find out for sure, Susan said. We'll go to their ship, have their meal, and hear what they really want. But we have an advantage now. We know something about them that they don't think we know. Patricia smiled. And I bet they'll expect us to be tired and slow after our big meal today. They don't realize we're used to it. Susan looked at her crew with pride. They were smart, brave, and ready for whatever came next. Humanity's first meeting with aliens was going better than anyone could have expected. Get some rest, she told them. Tomorrow is the real test, and I have a feeling Admiral Kazatak will be very surprised by humans. The next day, Captain Susan Wright and her team prepared to visit the alien ship. They wore their best uniforms and carried small hidden devices to scan and record everything they saw. Remember, Susan told her team as they waited in the shuttle, Bay, we're representing all of Earth today. Be respectful but confident, and keep your eyes open for anything useful. Alan Garcia checked his uniform one last time. Do you think they'll try to scare us with their technology? Probably, Susan said. Just act impressed but not afraid. The small Earth shuttle flew across the empty space between the two ships. As they got closer, the huge alien vessel seemed even bigger. It was at least 3 times the size of the Intrepid, with strange blue lights glowing along its 7 arms. Look, at the design, Patricia Baker said as they approached. Those 7 arms can probably move independently. Perfect for defense. The shuttle entered a large opening in the center ball of the alien ship. Inside was a huge bay with many smaller ships and strange machines. Several Zoraxians waited for them, standing perfectly still with their 4 arms held in what looked like a formal position. When the humans stepped out of their shuttle, one of the Zoraxians stepped forward. He was taller than Vexilor and had markings on his face that looked like small blue lines. "Captain Wright," he said in perfect English. "I am Admiral Kiztak. Welcome aboard the Star Reacher, flagship of the 7th Fleet of the Galactic Confederation." Susan stepped forward and bowed slightly. "Thank you for your welcome, Admiral. We are honored to be here." Kiztak led them through large hallways with high ceilings. The walls were a dark metal that seemed to change color slightly as they walked past. Other alien species moved through the halls, some looking almost like humans, but with different colors or extra limbs. Others completely different, with tentacles or transparent bodies. The Confederation includes 12 main species and 27 associate species, Kiztak explained. "We have existed for over 2,000 of your Earth years." "That's impressive," Susan said. "Earth nations have struggled to stay united for even 100 years. They entered a large room with a round table in the center. Unlike the human feast from the day before, this table had only small cups with different colored liquids. "Please sit," Kiztak said. "This is our traditional unity ceremony. Each cup contains a nutrient blend from the home world of a Confederation species." The humans sat down carefully. Susan noticed the seats were perfectly sized for them, which meant the aliens had studied human bodies very carefully. Vexilor sat next to Kiztak and whispered something to him. The Admiral's eyes blinked rapidly, which Susan guessed might be surprise. "Commander Vexilor tells me your people had a large meal yesterday," Kiztak said. "Yet you seem alert and focused. This is unusual in our experience." Susan smiled. "Humans have developed different customs than Zoraxians. For us, sharing food helps build trust and understanding." Kiztak gestured to the cups. "These drinks contain only enough nutrients to symbolize our unity. They will not slow your thinking for our discussion." Each human picked up a cup with liquid that looked safe for them. Patricia had secretly scanned them and sent signals to the others about which ones to choose. "To new friendships," Susan said, and they all drank. The liquid tasted strange, but not bad. It left a warm feeling as it went down. "Now we may speak, plainly," Kiztak said. "The Confederation has been watching Earth for 50 years. We find your species interesting and potentially valuable." "Valuable in what way?" Susan asked, though she already suspected the answer. "Humans are adaptable. You evolved on a world with high gravity and many predators. You can endure conditions that would kill many Confederation species. And you have warrior instincts that most civilized species have bred out." Alan shifted in his seat. "You make us sound like animals." "Not at all," Kiztak said quickly. "The opposite. You have kept your natural strengths while developing intelligence and technology. This is rare and useful." "What exactly are you suggesting?" Susan asked. Kiztak's 4 hands made a complex gesture. "The Confederation offers Earth membership as a client species. You would provide troops for our defense forces and get our protection and technology in return." The room was quiet. This was what they had expected, but hearing it said out loud was still shocking. "You want us to be soldiers for you," Joe Nelson said. "Peacekeepers," Kiztak corrected. "The Confederation rarely fights wars, but there are always threats from outside our borders. Having humans as part of our forces would make those threats less likely to attack." Susan kept her face calm, even though inside she was worried. "And if we decline this offer?" Kiztak blinked his 3 eyes in sequence. Then we would leave your system and place it under quarantine. No Confederation ships would trade with Earth or share technology. You would be on your own in a dangerous galaxy. Patricia spoke up. That sounds like a threat, Admiral. It is. Reality, Kazatak said. The galaxy has predators much worse than the Confederation. Without our protection, they will eventually find Earth. Susan could see this was not going well. The aliens weren't threatening war directly, but the message was clear. Join us or face the consequences. This is a decision that must involve all Earth governments, she said. We would need time to discuss it. Of course, Kazatak said. We will remain in your system for 7 Earth days. Then we must have your answer. The meeting continued with talks about what Earth would get from joining the Confederation. The aliens offered advanced technology, help with climate problems, and access to other star systems. It all sounded good, but Susan knew there was a high price: human freedom. After the official meeting, Kazatak invited them to see more of the ship. As they walked, Patricia stayed close to Susan. Their metabolism definitely slows after eating, she whispered. Even that small ceremonial drink made Kazatak's movements more deliberate. And notice how they keep all meetings short and focused. Susan nodded slightly. An idea was forming in her mind, but she needed more information. Alan had been studying the ship's layout. Their defense systems are amazing, he told Susan quietly. But they're designed to fight enemies who think like they do. Logical and predictable. Joe had been silent most of the time, listening to everything with his enhanced hearing aids. They keep talking about humans being unpredictable like it's both good and bad, he said. I think it scares them a little. By the time they returned to their shuttle, Susan had a plan. It was risky, but it might save Earth from becoming just another servant species to the Confederation. Back on the Intrepid, Susan called her crew together. They've given us 7 days, she said. But we're not going to wait that long. Tomorrow we're going to challenge their view of humans in a way they'll never forget. How? Alan asked. Susan smiled. We're going to invite them to a series of competitions, and we're going to use their own biology against them. The crew looked uncertain but excited. They were about to try a dangerous game against an alien empire. But if it worked, humans would enter the galactic stage on their own terms, not as soldiers for hire. Get ready, Susan told them. Tomorrow we show the Confederation why they should never underestimate humans. Susan did not wait long to put her plan into action. The very next morning, she sent a message to Admiral Kazatak. Admiral, on Earth, when 2 groups consider working together, we often test each other's skills through friendly competition. We invite you and your crew to join us for a series of challenges to demonstrate why humans would be valuable to the Confederation. The reply came quickly. Captain Wright, this is an interesting proposal. Zoraxians also value demonstrations of skill. What challenges do you suggest? Susan smiled as she typed her response. 3 challenges: a tactical simulation, a physical contest, and a problem-solving test. And in human tradition, each challenge will be preceded by a shared meal. There was a longer pause before the next reply. The challenges are acceptable. The meals are unusual, but we will respect your customs. We will arrive at your ship in 3 hours. When Susan told her crew the plan, Alan looked worried. Captain, are you sure about this? They have better technology and probably better training. We're not trying to beat them with strength or technology, Susan explained. We're going to show them something they don't understand: human unpredictability. Patricia had prepared special meals for each challenge. These foods are designed to be filling for Zoraxians while safe for their biology. They'll slow their metabolism more than the small ceremonial drinks from yesterday. Joe had been working on the tactical simulation. I've programmed it to favor creative solutions over standard military doctrine. The Zoraxians won't know what hit them. When Admiral Kazatak arrived with Commander Vexilor and 4 other Zoraxians, Susan greeted them warmly. Welcome back to the Intrepid. We've prepared a light meal before our first challenge. The first meal was in the main dining hall. The humans ate normally, talking and laughing as they did. The Zoraxians took small portions but ate them to be polite. Susan noticed they were careful not to eat too much. In human history, Susan explained as they ate. Warriors would often feast before battle. It built team spirit and gave energy for the fight ahead. Admiral Kazatak looked puzzled. This is opposite to Zeraxian practice. We find that hunger sharpens the mind and quickens the body. Different evolutionary paths, Patricia said with a smile. Humans needed energy reserves for long hunts and battles. After the meal, they moved to the simulation room. It was set up like a combat arena with virtual reality equipment for each participant. The challenge is simple, Susan explained. Each team defends a base while trying to capture the enemy's flag. You can use any strategy you like. The humans put on their VR gear with practiced ease. The Zeraxians were slower, their movements already slightly affected by the meal. Inside the virtual world, the two teams appeared on opposite sides of a complex landscape with hills, forests, and a river between them. The Zeraxians immediately formed a perfect defensive formation around their base and sent 2 scouts forward. The human team seemed to have no clear strategy. Alan ran straight toward the enemy base. Patricia climbed a tall hill to watch the battlefield. Joe disappeared into the forest. Susan stayed near their base but kept moving around. The Zeraxians were confused by these scattered tactics. They expected the humans to use a standard military approach with clear roles and formations. When Alan charged right at them, they easily captured him. But it was a trick. While the Zeraxians were busy with Alan, Joe had sneaked through the forest and around the back of their base. By the time they realized what was happening, Joe had grabbed their flag and was running back toward the river. 2 Zeraxians chased Joe, but Susan was waiting. She jumped out from behind a rock and blocked their path, giving Joe time to escape. The simulation ended with a human victory. That was unexpected, Admiral Kazatak said as they removed their VR gear. Your tactics made no sense, yet they worked. Susan smiled. Humans have learned that sometimes the best strategy is to be unpredictable. They moved to the second challenge after another meal, this one even more filling than the first. The Zeraxians again ate politely but sparingly. Even so, Patricia could see their movements becoming slightly slower. The second challenge was physical. The humans had set up an obstacle course in one of the cargo bays. It had walls to climb, tunnels to crawl through, and balance beams to cross. This course tests strength, speed, and adaptability, Susan explained. Each team will run it as a relay race. The race started with Joe going first for the humans. He wasn't the strongest crew member, but he was quick and agile. He moved through the course with almost playful energy, not taking the most direct route but finding creative shortcuts. The Zeraxian who went first was clearly stronger, but he tried to power straight through each obstacle in the most logical way. By the end of his turn, he was breathing hard, his metabolism struggling after the recent meal. Alan went next for the humans, using his long legs to jump over some obstacles entirely. Patricia followed with clever solutions to each challenge, and Susan finished the race with a burst of speed. The Zeraxians completed the course too, but they were slower than expected. Their movements lacked the spontaneity of the humans. They followed textbook approaches to each obstacle. When the race ended, Commander Vexilor looked troubled. You move differently than any species we have encountered. There is no pattern to predict. Humans adapt to each situation, Susan explained. We don't follow fixed rules if a better solution presents itself. The final challenge came after the biggest meal yet. This time even the disciplined Zeraxians couldn't avoid eating a substantial amount without seeming rude. Patricia noticed their eye movements becoming slightly sluggish. The problem-solving test was simple. Both teams needed to build a bridge across a gap using only the materials provided. The catch was that there weren't enough materials to build a complete bridge. The Zeraxians immediately began calculating and measuring, trying to find the perfect engineering solution. They worked methodically, following clear procedures. The humans, led by Patricia, tried a different approach. They looked at the problem from unusual angles. Instead of building a traditional bridge, they created a simple pulley system that could carry people across the gap. When time ran out, the Zeraxians had built half of a perfect bridge that went nowhere. The humans had a strange-looking but functional, solution that actually worked. Admiral Kazatak stared at the human creation for a long time. "This is not a bridge," he finally said. "No," Susan agreed. "It's a solution to the problem of crossing the gap. The challenge never specified it had to be a bridge." For the first time, the Admiral's formal manner cracked slightly. "You humans do not think like any species we have encountered. You break rules, ignore traditions, and find paths where none should exist. And you do all this after eating large meals that should slow your thinking." Susan saw her opening. "Perhaps now you understand why humans feast before important events. Our unpredictability is our strength. And if you want humans as part of the Confederation, you need to recognize that strength." Admiral Kazatak and Commander Vexler exchanged glances. The humans had just shown them something they had never seen before, and it had changed everything. After the 3 challenges ended, Admiral Kazatak asked to speak privately with Captain Susan Wright. They walked together to a small meeting room on the Intrepid, with Commander Vexelor and Lieutenant Alan Garcia joining them. "Captain Wright," the Admiral said once they were seated, "I must admit that your demonstrations have been eye-opening. Never in my 50 years of service have I seen tactics like yours." Susan nodded politely. "Thank you, Admiral. I hope this helps you understand why humans might be valuable to the Confederation in ways beyond simple combat roles." The Admiral's 3 eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture Susan was beginning to recognize as deep thought. "Indeed, but I am troubled by something. These meals before each challenge, I suspect they were not just about tradition." Susan looked directly at the Admiral. It was time for honesty. "You're right. We studied your biology during Commander Vexler's visit. We noticed that Zoraxian metabolism slows after eating, which explains your custom of fasting before important events." Vexler let out a sound that might have been a gasp. "You used our own biology against us. That is strategic thinking," Admiral Kazatak finished for him. His tone wasn't angry, but impressed. "You found a weakness and exploited it without violence. Most species would have tried to match our strength or technology. You found a different path." Alan looked tense, ready for things to go bad. But Susan stayed calm. "That's how humans operate, Admiral. We don't have the strongest bodies or the best technology. We survive by adapting and finding creative solutions." The Admiral stood up and walked to the window, looking out at his own massive ship floating in space near the much smaller Intrepid. "The truth is, Captain, we did not come here looking for simple soldiers. The Confederation has plenty of strong species who can fight." "Then what do you want from Earth?" Susan asked. "Thinkers, problem solvers, species who see things differently." The Admiral turned back to face them. "The Confederation has grown, comfortable and predictable. Our enemies know exactly how we will respond to any threat. We follow the same patterns that have worked for centuries." "And that's becoming a problem," Susan guessed. "Yes. New threats are emerging from beyond our borders. Species who do not think like us. Our traditional tactics are failing. That is why we sought out Earth." Admiral Kazatak sat down again. "Your planet's isolation from galactic society has allowed you to develop unique ways of thinking." Vexelor spoke up. "When I reported that humans feast before important meetings, Admiral Kazatak thought you were primitive or foolish. Now I understand it was neither. It was simply human." Susan smiled. "So you never really wanted us as frontline troops. You wanted our unpredictability?" "Precisely." The Admiral made a gesture with his 4 hands that Susan hadn't seen before. "But I had to be sure you were as adaptable as our scouts suggested. These challenges proved it beyond doubt." Alan relaxed, slightly. "So what happens now? Earth still doesn't want to be a client species taking orders from the Confederation." Admiral Kazatak made that hand gesture again. "What if we offered a different arrangement? Not as clients, but as full partners in the Confederation, equal standing with the founding species." Susan couldn't hide her surprise. "That's very generous. Why would you offer that?" "Because we need you," the Admiral said simply. And because after today, I believe trying to control humans would be like trying to catch water with a net. You would find ways around any restrictions we placed on you. Susan and Alan exchanged glances. This was far better than they had hoped for. Earth's governments would need to discuss this offer, Susan said. But speaking personally, I think it has merit. Of course, you have the original 7 days to respond, Admiral Kazatak said. But first, there is one more thing I must know. He leaned forward. Do humans really feast before actual combat? Or was that a deception? Susan laughed. Sometimes truth is more complex than simple yes or no. Throughout human history, different warriors had different customs. Some fasted like Zoraxians. Others feasted like we showed you. Most did whatever worked for their specific situation. Adaptability again, Vexler said, sounding almost frustrated. Yes, Susan agreed. What you've seen isn't just about food or traditions. It's about humans questioning everything, even our own rules. When something doesn't work, we try something new. Admiral Kuztak stood up. Then I look forward to the Confederation learning this skill from humanity. It seems we have grown too comfortable with our ways. After the Admiral and Vexler returned to their ship, Susan called her entire crew together in the main hall. I have news, she told them. The Confederation isn't looking for soldiers. They're looking for thinkers, and they've offered Earth full partnership rather than client status. The crew cheered. It was the best possible outcome from a situation that had looked dangerous just days ago. What changed their minds? Joe asked. We did, Susan said. All of us. We showed them something they hadn't seen before. Humans adapting and finding unexpected solutions. Patricia smiled. So our plan worked better than we hoped. We used their biology against them to demonstrate human creativity. Exactly, Susan said. But there's something more important here. The Admiral admitted they need new ways of thinking to face new threats. If those threats scare the Confederation, we should be concerned too. Alan nodded. So Earth joins the Confederation as equals, gets their technology and protection, and helps them think outside their very structured box. That's the offer, Susan confirmed. I've already sent the details to Earth Command. They're discussing it with world governments now. Over the next week, Earth's leaders debated the offer. There were concerns about losing independence, but also excitement about gaining access to the stars. In the end, they accepted the partnership with specific conditions to protect Earth's autonomy. 1 month later, Susan stood on the bridge of the Intrepid as it prepared to leave Earth orbit. The ship had been upgraded with Confederation technology, and her crew had been expanded to include specialists from several alien species who wanted to learn human ways of thinking. Captain, we're ready to depart, Alan said from his station. Susan looked at the view screen showing Earth growing smaller as they moved away. They were heading to the Confederation capital to help establish Earth's new embassy. It was the beginning of humanity's journey into the wider galaxy. Before we go to Lightspeed, Susan said, I've arranged a special meal for our entire crew, humans and aliens together. It's a new tradition I'm starting. What's it called? Asked a young Zoraxian officer who had joined their crew as a cultural exchange. Susan smiled. I call it the Feast of New Beginnings, because that's what we're celebrating, the beginning of humanity's greatest adventure. As humans and aliens sat down together to share food and stories, Susan knew they had found their place among the stars, not as warriors or servants, but as thinkers and problem solvers who saw the universe in ways no one else could. And it had all started with a simple misunderstanding about why humans feast before important events.